Hey there, Vibe Tribe. This is Marna, and thank you for tuning in for your channel message from the Universal Consciousness. These messages are timeless, so take what applies to you and leave the rest for the tribe. If you'd like a personalized channeled message from your higher self, my contact information is in the description box below. Now, on to our message. Have you felt it? So many people that I know have, but have you felt it? Have you felt the change in the wind? Because it is coming. We have been in an era where all that mattered was the personal gain, personal abundance, building up your own personal supply, and that is changing for us. We are learning that it is time for us to give rather than gather. It is time for us to take these riches that we have amassed. I mean, how many billions does one person need? And it is time to distribute these riches to others in an air of love. It is time to look at your personal gains and see how those personal gains can be used towards the greater good. There was a time in our country when people who had amassed wealth past a certain amount saw it as a privilege to give back to their community. And giving back to their community was seen, it was lauded, it was applauded, and it was a mark of them being a decent person, no matter what they had done to gather the money in the first place. This is why there are Carnegie libraries all across the country, because the Carnegie family understood the importance of at least publicly supporting public ongoing education by creating these libraries in areas where they otherwise could not be afforded. Are you feeling it? Have you seen what personal wealth could do for the greater good of humanity if we just stopped acting like fucking dragons and hoarding it all? I mean, really, this has gotten ridiculous. And things are going to change if those who have collected obscene amounts of wealth are not willing to be socially responsible on their own, then we have no choice but to go back to the 95% corporate tax rate that we had in the 50s and the 60s. You know that great golden age that the Make America Great Again people will keep wanting to go back to? Yeah, they forget about that tax rate. And that tax rate is what made possible the interstate system. That tax rate is what made possible for us to go to the moon. That tax rate is what made it possible for us to become the great country that they say they idolize. And we will not reach that level of greatness again without corporations and mega billionaires paying their fair share, which they haven't been. But this is changing. The winds are changing. The wheel is turning around us. Are you feeling this? Because I am, and I'm feeling it all the time. It keeps me from sleeping at night. Those who have been ostracized, those who have been on the outskirts, those who have been ignored as they are crying out in the cold, are going to be heard. And they are going to be heard whether those in power want them to be or not. Those voices can no longer be ignored. Those voices are crying out, and they will be heard one way or another. And this means that for most of us, it is time for us to be ready to support, to be ready to go to battle if need be, to be ready to act in an air of love for all of us, not just for those that we're personally close to. It is time for us to step up into our warrior mode to protect all of us, not just those we hold near and dear. And the fight is not going to be easy. The fight is going to take a lot out of us. The fight is going to leave us feeling broken, and it is going to force us into entirely new ways of being, new ways of living, new ways of approaching what it means to be a successful individual. Can you feel this change? We are seeing a shift in the cultural dynamics away from personal gain and into societal benefit. On the whole, we are taking a step up on the spiral of evolutionary consciousness. We are moving out of being completely focused on the individual and moving back into being focused on the society as a whole and the betterment of society as a whole. But we cannot do this if we keep acting out of hate and fear. We must be acting out of love to achieve what we are capable of. And this isn't going to be easy. This is going to be work. This is going to be hard work. This is going to be feeling burdened, feeling like we will never reach the finish line, feeling like we will never see the end result we're working for. Because so often as we are on this journey, we are going to be completely and utterly focused on the next step, maybe 2 steps ahead. The problem with doing that, with focusing solely on what is directly in front of us, is it robs us of the vision of seeing where we are going. It robs us of seeing how close we have already come. So remember to take a moment to look back at how far we have come. Look back at what we have moved on from already. Look at the changes in humanity in just the last 100 years, when we went from bumbling flights on the sand dunes of North Carolina to putting people into space to now having privately owned companies that can take regular trips to space. We are meant to fly. We are meant to move on from just being stuck here. But the only way to do that is to stop the focus on the self and enhance your focus to the greater, to the world at large. And that has been a problem because there's so many people who are afraid of globalism, who are afraid of admitting that we are all the same species. Guess what? We are. And we've got a lot of close cousins that we have tended to put in zoos because we don't realize just how close we are to them as well. Land and sea, we're guilty of all of it. We have to change from what is in personal interest to what is in the interest of all, or there will be nothing left to support the personal. The dissolution that has come from being so completely and utterly focused on just the self. We have become addicts. We have become addicts to Instagram fame. We have become addicts to that 15 minutes that Andy Warhol promised us. We have become addicted to being seen as an individual without allowing ourselves to be seen and heard as part of a collective. And losing that collective voice is the reason why there is so much conflict now. We have to regain the collective voice of humanity. Not of tribalism, not of nationalism, not of my skin makes me better than yours. The collective voice. Because our species as a collective is dependent on the moves we make now. It is dependent on how we choose to move forward now. It is dependent on what it is that we see as worth fighting for now. Otherwise, the damage that we have already done will be enough to take us out as a whole. And I'm sorry to bump off this series with something that's so heavy, but this is what Spirit is moving me to say. I am Marna. Thank you very much for tuning in for this channeled message, and I will see you on the next video.